Hello! Hi, how's it going? Então, gente, esse vídeo vai ser completamente em inglês. Eu vou falar um pouco sobre a minha trajetória até a fluência em inglês, mas vocês já sabem como é que é. Então, no canto inferior direito, vocês podem ligar a legenda tanto em inglês quanto em português, se vocês precisarem. Let's go! So, if you came here waiting to hear a story about how I got fluent in English in 3 months, well, honey, that didn't happen, and that doesn't happen. Actually, my story to reach my current level of fluency in English was quite long. I stretched it a lot, a lot more than I should have, but it took me a while to get to this level of being comfortable and being able to express myself. So I started all the way back when I was 8 years old. For reference, I'm 21 right now, so my first contact with English was when I was 8 years old, and I went to a English course, a very well-known English school. I'm not gonna, cite any names right here, but it was a big English school, and my mom, since like always, she always knew that she wanted me to learn English. She knew that it was important. But when I was a kid, I wasn't really big on socializing with other kids, and so like they had all these dynamics that were super awkward for me. I didn't know those kids, and then we had to play together, and it was everything like so forced, and I did not like it. It was like a chore going every week to the English course, and so like I stopped classes like pretty soon after, like 6 months, I want to say, something like that. I didn't stay for very long, and then when I came back when I was around 10 on another English school, and that one was a lot more like a classroom type of thing. So we sat down, the teacher explained everything, and then we had some dialogues, but it was like the dynamic was a lot more like my style. And so like when I was 10 years old, I studied for a bit, but then again I stopped a lot because for a long time English was like this thing that I had to learn, and it was so boring because I had this pressure to learn. It was like I don't want to do it. I did not like it one bit when I first started. And then finally I started taking things more seriously when I did a different kind of dynamic on that previous English school. They had a class type where you just sat there and you read the book, read the examples, heard everything, the dialogue, and then you studied by yourself pretty much. And then the teacher came and you could ask your questions, and then you'd have the dialogue with the teacher. So it was like a one-on-one experience, which I liked a lot better. And in that little kind of scheme, I stayed for, I want to say 3 years. 3 years, like following the course, doing the books. It was still really, really boring, but at least I could like do things on my own. I never really liked the whole like classroom experience as a student. I always preferred to study by myself, so this was a lot better for me at the time. And so again, for like another year, I stopped studying for a while there. I don't remember why. I always had like this thing where I took school very seriously, like high school, middle school. I took everything very seriously because I wanted to get into college and all of that. And so I would get very overwhelmed with homework back then because my school was quite strict and we had to do a lot of homework, and so I'd always have to interrupt the other things that I wanted to do in my life because I was so focused on school. So yeah, that's probably why I stopped again. But then I went to another school after a little while, and I just wanted to, at this point, I just wanted to prove my English because in the meantime, I was starting to watch some videos on YouTube. That's when I could understand a lot more. In this little break I took, I just like consumed a lot of more materials in English, and I learned like through osmosis, kind of. But I couldn't really speak at all. I could understand a lot, but I would, you know, speak like this and very slowly, and I was very scared to talk. And I wanted to, you know, prove my English in a very well-known English school. And then I took the kind of advanced course, or like intermediate, kind of doing well course, and then I stayed there for just 6 months again, and it was more like of a conversational based school, which I at the time actually enjoyed. And so with that, I had an advanced level according to the English schools. That doesn't mean that I was actually fluent at all. I couldn't really understand a lot of things without subtitles, and I couldn't communicate my feelings fluently. There was always something stopping me but I knew all of the like basic things. Verb to be, I revised that thing every single year in high school. So for grammar and stuff like that, I knew pretty well. But the actual everyday English, I couldn't English at all back then. But you know, the school said I was advanced because I knew a lot of like vocabulary and grammar. And then I made a very ballsy decision. It was pretty brave because I was 16 years old, and I decided that I wanted to, you know, deepen my English, like take the English language and take a dive right onto it. And so I went to London, and I told a little bit about my experience there. I spent 3 weeks in London as an exchange program, and then it became painfully obvious all of the weaknesses I had. As soon as I got there, I took a test on the English school there, and again, I was in the level advanced, but I had a really hard time understanding a lot of things, because in the daily use of the language, people talk really fast, and there's no subtitles, there's no rewinding, people just talk. You know, they talk like on the street all the time, and there were a lot of things, like for example, the news they watched in English. There were a lot of things that I was like, what was that again? So I had to be really focused to understand, so much so that by the end of the day, I was super tired, and then my host mom came to talk to me, and I was like, what? Like simple things that I would have understood in the morning, I couldn't understand anymore because I was so tired and I couldn't like focus and force my brain to be in English mode. It was like very much so Portuguese, English, and the barrier between them was so thick. I could not just like switch like this. At that time there, even though it was short, it really helped me because I could, you know, practice in everyday life situations, and I learned a lot of things, especially like lessons in responsibility and all that. But as far as the English goes, it wasn't like I am today. The biggest thing that made an impact in my English, my conversational English, and my fluency was definitely speaking English every day. Because when I came back in 2017, I had this small little gaming channel actually that I made videos in English. So I play some games, especially The Sims, because I love The Sims. And I'd play and I'd commentate over it in English, everything in English. And at first I was very like stiff. I was like a robot talking. And then I got very much better over a few months. And then I'd also like make some friends over the internet, and we would Skype and talk about games and all of that. And that was when I made the most progress in English. So you see, it wasn't even in England, it wasn't even when I was in London, where literally everyone speaks English, that I made the most progress. It was just when I was like, okay, I'm gonna have some friends. I'm gonna talk and literally talk all day in English because in my internship, sometimes I go back home and I talk to my family and all that, so I still use a lot of Portuguese. And moreover, in my language school in London, there were a lot of Brazilian people. Like 70% of the people there were either Brazilian or from a Spanish-speaking country, so that made us all like form a little bit of a clique, and we would all like walk together, we'd hang out together and talk mostly in Portuguese together. So yes, and finally we're here today. The only thing I'm doing currently to keep my English is just to watch a lot of content without subtitles. I make sure to take off all those subtitles when I'm watching a movie and videos on YouTube and stuff like that. But I do want to take a proficiency exam, like take a test that proves that I do have a fluent level in English, so I need to reach a C2 level. And I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about that because I really want to take the exam on February next year. So I'm going to have to actually study for that for a change. And that is pretty much it. So what are the lessons that we've learned here? Mastering a language can take a really long time. Of course, like I could have focused more. I could have just, there was a lot of time that I wasn't actually in the English courses because of school, because of life in general, and then I stopped. But even so, even if I focus 100% of my efforts, which is not realistic, by the way, we always have something else to do. But let's just say that I could focus 100% of my attention in going to English school classes, I still would have reached the same problem that English schools always have. That is, you learn a lot of grammar, you know all the rules and stuff like that, but you have this barrier when you're trying to speak. You don't have like conversational English, you can't like just watch things without subtitles and feel completely like a native speaker. That's a problem that a lot of schools actually have. And another thing you should take away from this video is that you don't need to go to the country that speaks that language for you to master that language. You can do all that from here. The secret is all on the internet. You can like reach to people on those other countries, on Twitter, on specific apps that you can like exchange your language. You can just make an immersion right here. You don't need to wait to go to the country to make the immersion. You can start over here, you know. But of course, if you like have the chance to go, you should definitely 100% go. I'm just saying that you don't need to do that. But yes, I hope this video was interesting for you guys to hear my story with English and for you to know that I have a pretty good English right now, but it took me a while to get to where I am today. So if you feel like you're not making as much progress, or if you feel like, oh my god, she speaks like that and I just speak like this, just know that I studied for a really long time, and if you do the same, even for a shorter period of time, maybe you can reach this level or even a higher level. I mean, I don't know. But anyways, guys, that was it for this video. If you want any more videos in English and stuff like that, you can let me know in the comments, please. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me if you subscribed. And yes, I guess that is it. I will see you guys on my very next video. Bye!